I'm going to start with a short story about my childhood, and then I'll tell you what its connection is with my topic, the English language. And you'll see that it's something that connects all of us to this uncommon language called English. As a child, I loved to eat raw mango with ginger, chili, and pepper. My ayah used to prepare it for me. I guess I was partial to foods with a sour taste because I also loved her tamarind chicken curry. Aya's cooking talent was one of the many reasons that I was fond of her. In fact, the only times that I remember being upset with her is when she'd wash my hair because the shampoo would get into my eyes and make them burn. We used to live in a bungalow in Calcutta those days, and there were so many trees in our garden, mango, tamarind, and others, that it resembled a jungle. On winter mornings, I'd sit on the veranda in my pajamas, wrapped in an old indigo shawl against the cold, looking out at the trees, wondering when each one would bear fruit so I could gorge on those homegrown treats. There's just one horrible incident that I remember from those times involving thugs who came and hid among the trees at night and looted our house while we slept. But I'm going to cut my story short on that sour note because my intention is not to bore you with the details of my childhood obsession with sour food or that one terrible incident with the thugs. I merely want to make the point that English is, in a way, an Indian language. That doesn't make any sense, you must be thinking, right? And what's the connection between my story and this point that I supposedly have? Well, let me ask you this. Did you notice that every single sentence in my story contains at least one word of Indian origin? Mango, ginger, pepper, ayah, curry, shampoo, bungalow, jungle, veranda, pajama, shawl, thug, loot. Yes, all of these everyday English words are of Indian origin. So I think that 400 years of British presence in India ensured that not only did we enrich Britain as a country, but our languages also enriched the English language. And I think that with English having taken so much from India, we should return the favor and make English our very own. And I think in many ways we've already done that. Me talking to you here today, not in Tamil, Hindi or Bengali, but in English is an example of it. But coming back to the British, they didn't wait to come to India before starting to take our words into their language. That process began with the trade between India, Greece, and Rome in ancient times. Our exports included things like ginger, pepper, and indigo, the blue dye. And along with these items, we also exported their names, which entered Greek as well as Latin, the language of ancient Rome. And from there, eventually, our friends, the English, picked up the words. Let's take a closer look at the journeys of some of these words. Let's take ginger. Ginger originates in the ancient Dravidian word that gave rise to the modern Tamil and Malayalam words for ginger, injiver. The ancient Dravidian word traveled to Greece and became zingiberis. From there it went into Latin as gingifer, as gingiber, and then into Old English as gingifer, and finally into modern English as ginger. Similarly, the word pepper comes from the Sanskrit word pippali. The word indigo has a slightly different background. It comes from the Greek word indikos, meaning Indian, which in this case is short for Indian dye, so there's an Indian connection there as well. Mango started out as the Tamil word mangai, then went into Portuguese via Malayalam as manga, and then into English as mango. The word ayah traveled in the opposite direction. It originates in the Portuguese word aya, spelled A-I-A. The Portuguese used that word in India to refer to a nurse or a governess. The word entered Indian languages and then went into English as A-Y-A-H, aya. So the word didn't originate with us, but the English definitely picked up ayah from our country. Shampoo comes from the Hindi word champo, which means to press. I guess it was too cold in the days before modern heating in England, so the English didn't wash their hair and they picked up the habit only after coming to India. India, of course, had been using shampoo from the days of the Indus Valley civilization. Bungalow comes from the word Bangla, meaning Bengali, and it refers to the houses built in the Bengal style. And what do bungalows always have? Verandas. Veranda again comes from the Portuguese word varanda, meaning railing. So like Aya, veranda started out as Portuguese, became Indian, and then finally English, though it changed its meaning a little along the way. The word jungle comes from the Hindi word jungle. The word pajama comes from the Urdu word pajama, which literally means leg clothing. And shawl comes from Urdu word shal. The word thug comes from the Hindi word thug, meaning swindler or deceiver. The original Indian thugs were highway robbers who used to disguise themselves as regular travelers, befriend real travelers, and when they were least expecting it, strangle them with a handkerchief and then proceed to loot them. Loot is another word that English looted from India. Originally a Hindi word, it was first used in English in the 18th century during the impeachment trial of Warren Hastings, the Governor General of Bengal. Accused of looting the state instead of governing it, he was later acquitted, which is hardly surprising, given that many would say that the primary activity of the British administration in India at that time was looting. So why would they punish one of their own for it? Now the word chili has an interesting origin story as well, and you can find this story in the old dictionary called Hobson-Jobson. Published in 1886, this dictionary gives us the origins and meanings of Anglo-Indian words and phrases. And according to the Hobson-Jobson, the word Chile comes from the name of the country called Chile in South America, from where the Portuguese brought in the chili that we eat for the first time into India in the 16th century. Imagine that. The chili, which we consider the quintessential ingredient of our great traditional cuisine, didn't exist in the country till some foreigners brought it in just a few centuries ago. Now, the name of the dictionary, Hobson-Jobson, has an origin story that is, quite frankly, a bit hard to believe. The British used the term Hobson-Jobson in India to refer to any local festival, but it originated in the observance of Muharram. English people would hear the cries of Ya Hassan, Ya Hussein during Muharram, not quite catch the words, and they ended up anglicizing them to Hobson-Jobson. It's quite unbelievable, isn't it? But it's true. Now this brings me to an important question. What on earth is curry? Apparently it's what we Indians and other South Asians eat. Really? Well, the British coined the word, and they probably got it from the Tamil word curry, meaning gravy or sauce, or from the North Indian dish called curry, or from the curry leaf, which is known as curry patta or variations of that in various South Asian languages from Bengali to Malayalam. But wherever the British might have got it from, thanks to them, now all Indian savory dishes are called curry, even though they may be completely different from each other. Robin Cook, the late British politician, had given a speech in 2001, which came to be known as the Chicken Tikka Masala speech. Chicken Tikka Masala is the name of a curry that's popular in Britain. And the speech got that name because Robin Cook said that chicken tikka masala is now a true British national dish, not only because it's the most popular, but because it perfectly illustrates how Britain absorbs and adapts external influences. Chicken tikka is an Indian dish. The masala sauce was added to it to satisfy the desire of British people to have their meat served in gravy. So not only have the British been absorbing and adapting our languages, but our food as well. They might as well declare themselves as Indian, and then English will get the status of a full-fledged Indian language. If the Indian contribution to English vocabulary is not enough for English to be considered an Indian language, then perhaps the sheer number of English speakers in India should convince them. Let's take a look at where India stacks up against other English-speaking nations. In the number one position is not the UK, it's the US. America has the highest number of English speakers. In the second position is again not the UK, it's India. Yes, we have the second highest number of English speakers in the world, right behind America and far ahead of Britain. So that should qualify English as an Indian language, just as it's considered an American language. Now, I've been talking about Indian words expanding English vocabulary historically, but did you know that it continues to happen in the present day? Just some years ago, for example, we introduced the word preponed. That didn't exist in the dictionary before that. People in other English-speaking countries would say things like, the class has been brought forward. But isn't it more efficient to say preponed instead of brought forward? The word postpone already existed, so why not invent its opposite? Well, that's exactly what we did, and now millions of Indians say the class has been preponed. Perhaps it's a matter of time before other English-speaking nations follow suit. And then there's Bangalore. Now, this word is obviously inspired by a city in India. It was coined by the Americans when IT jobs started being outsourced to Bengaluru. An American who'd lost his or her job to outsourcing would say, I've been Bangalored. Yoga is another contributor to the English language. The English word yoga, of course, itself is of Indian origin. Namaste has become popular in yoga studios around the world. And even words like Surya Namaskar have recently made it into the Oxford Dictionary. Chicken tikka and its British variant aren't the only Indian origin dishes to have become popular abroad. Gulab jamun and vada are among the other food-related Indian terms that have found their way into the English dictionary in recent times. Now, one can't talk about Indian English without mentioning uniquely Indian inventions like time pass and funda. I was shocked to find the following sentence being given by the dictionary as an example of the usage of time pass. College has become a euphemism, says the dictionary, for 3 years of time pass. Shocking, isn't it? But I'm sure it doesn't apply to your college. Funda is short for fundamentals. You could say the English get many of their fundas about their own language from India. Fundas about words like adjust. In India, if somebody on a bus asks you to please adjust, they want you to sit in such a way that a third person can squeeze into a seat meant for two. And so the juggernaut of Indian English rolls on. Not even the British, the originators of the language, can halt it. Speaking of which, do you know the origin of the word juggernaut? It's the anglicized form of the name of the Hindu god Jagannath, who presides over the Puri temple in Orissa along with his brother and sister. Once a year during the Rath Yatra festival, the huge wooden forms of these three deities are taken in a massive chariot through streets overflowing with devotees. Seeing this spectacle in the days of the Raj, the British were inspired to come up with the word juggernaut, meaning unstoppable force. Indeed, Indian English is an unstoppable force, a force that all of us add to every time we use the language. And I'm convinced that in the years to come, the language is going to become more Indian than English. Thank you and namaste.